Hi, my name is Amanda Dunker, and I will be the main presenter for A Child's Purpose project. This project was created by Haley Cole, Samantha Coley, and Amanda Dunker. Project overview. In this group project, we created a turn-based game demo called A Child's Purpose. In this demo, you will interact with villagers who will give you advice and a background of the storyline. The first and only level in this demo is the forest. In this forest, you will run into wolves, and you must protect yourself to survive. Be careful though, if you kill too many wolves, you'll lose your purity of heart, which is not a good thing because it can lead to character death and restart of the game. But have no fear, there are magical wisps in this forest who will help you restore your health, energy, and reclaim your innocence back. So as group projects go, we all contribute our own part. We will start with Haley's part. Haley created a roaming villager in enemy AI. She also gave the villagers a variety of dialogue, so it'll randomly select whatever they want to do, and it will tell you where to go next in the level and just a general storyline. She also textured all personal models. She modeled the hair, clothes, and weapon for the character. She rigged and animated the player character and AI characters. She found and implemented a wolf asset off the UE4 store page. She set up our respiratory for GitHub, and she created a Prezi project. Next is Samantha's part. She modeled the village pieces in the base of the player model. She sculpted terrain and added assets into the village and forest levels. She found foliage pieces for use in the environment. She made a spline animation and particle systems. She set up the lighting for the levels. And she wrote AI dialogue for the villagers. And she also recorded the gameplay. And then my part. I set up the turn-based battle system slash interactive UI. I created a battle camera that freezes the players in place. I gave characters multiple gameplay changing variables. I set up and designed the title screen and loading screen. I designed and animated the other widgets. I created emissive materials for the wisps. I figured out the steps on how to connect Unreal content to GitHub source control. And finally, I helped design the Prezi, and I'm presenting right now and editing the video. So, of course, as group projects go, or any type of project or life in general, we all run into problems. Our main problem for our group was GitHub, and it was frustrating. It would continuously overwrite our work, it would delete our things, and it refused to function properly because it constantly had some form of error or crashing system. To fix this issue, we made a new respiratory and migrated all the necessary files from the old projects we have saved in a local file. A better approach for this next time would probably be create a clone respiratory within the GitHub desktop and then migrate through there, which would cause less problems probably with migrating larger files. Haley's problems. She will explain that for you.
Some issues I encountered during this project started with the roaming AI I made towards the beginning of the project time. When I first made the AI and followed along with the tutorial, he set it up to where they would rotate towards you when you talked to them. But he also noticed an issue that he did not resolve in the same video. I was going to resolve it myself, except because of time constraints, I had to put it to the wayside, and it now has been removed due to even tighter time constraints. Because of GitHub and us having to make an entirely new repository, a couple things were changed with the moving of our stuff to this new project. One of those changes made it to where the dialogue wouldn't show after you interacted with the character. This was because we had two different third-person characters, one with our code in it and the other that was the default third-person character. I was using the default when I was supposed to be using ours with the code. Going to importing my animations to Unreal, when I first imported them, I couldn't figure out why they weren't moving when I opened them in the viewport. That was because the animations were on the curves of the rig and not the actual joints of the rig. Another issue was that they were rotated weird ways, which was just something I had to fix by enabling root motions. Something I could not fix simply because it was something I needed to take into consideration before animating is that Unreal's bone system is a bit weird. It doesn't animate its root bone, which in mine was the hip bone, meaning any animation I had on the hip bone was not translated into Unreal. This resulted in things such as the feet moving up and down in the idle pose and him not jumping back in his attack pose. It's irritating, but something to keep in mind in future rigs. And something else that just kept happening as a result of GitHub is that the animations just kept breaking. They would just disassociate with their models, and I had to go in and reassign them to where they're supposed to be.
Samantha is up next.
My name is Samantha, and for this project, I was the environmental artist. I had learned the sculpting tool in Unreal, and I had sculpted the landscape and painted the textures and foliage on it. I had actually had to make it several times, and it became quite fun learning how to blend everything together. My biggest issue was with the sharing program we were using. I kept getting this error and I didn't understand how to fix it. I had thought that I was doing the correct thing, but after speaking to one of my teammates, I had realized that I wasn't initializing the program in the right file path. So I had to go into the command prompt and change my directories. And I really wish I had paid attention in computer science because that is one of my biggest weaknesses. The other issue I had was with my spline particles. I had remembered the blueprinting correctly, but my spline was acting crazy when playing in the map, and I had no idea where it was even going. So I had played with the blueprinting, the timeline, try to figure out what exactly was wrong. I added this multiplier, and it did do something that I thought I liked. That's not what I wanted it to do, but with that specific blueprint, I thought that'd be a nice touch. But that's not what I wanted, so I tried again. After playing with the order, I realized that that is my problem. That was my that was what was messing it up. So I just fixed it up and made the spline the root. And then it worked properly.
And then me. So the first problem I ran into is the organization and flow of the widgets, which is probably the most important part of creating a turn-based game because if it's not organized in a proper sequence, it's going to mess up and not flow properly. We had two different attack options, each doing its own damage and taking away its own energy variable. I decided that I was going to take one attack option into an enemy select, and the enemy select widget would deal the damage and take away the energy. Then I just copied all the references, pasted it, created a new node called enemy select 2, had the second attack go into enemy select 2, and that was the simplest answer I could find for that problem. Next, I had to determine which widget would contain the battle end sequence because I had once you clicked on an enemy select, it's going to take you back to the attack widgets because you want to attack again, obviously, to kill the player. This created a problem because I was originally going to put in an enemy select, but I ended up deciding that the attack widget was probably the end of the battle sequence. So that's where I enabled the movement of the character, switch back to the camera, and all that good stuff. Next, I needed to create a transform reference for the cutscene camera. I originally had it attached to the AI enemy wolf, but it was just looking behind the shoulders of the wolf and or the TPC. So I decided I was going to add an empty actor and attach it to the AI wolf, have it a little bit above where it's standing, and then get that bird's eye view. Next, I had to figure out how to transition back to my default camera after switching to that camera. That was a simple fix. All you have to do is view to target blend, and then you get it connected to the player character or wherever actor you want to have it switched to, and that can create an easy way for camera transitions. Next, I figured out that I realized that once you defeat one enemy, you're going to defeat all the enemies because all the enemies have the same health variable attached to them. I figured to get around the solution, I would just have one enemy in the level at once, and once that said enemy was destroyed, I would spawn another enemy the same enemy at a specific location. Once I did this, though, the new spawned enemy would lose its movement. This also had a quick fix, thankfully. Just go to the class defaults, go into the pawns tab, and then under movement, it'll say movement when placed or spawned, and then it'll start moving again, and then there you go. So, in conclusion, by combining all the members' skills together, we created a demo for a turn-based game. Sam used her artistic skills to model assets and build the terrain. Haley used her technical skills to animate and rig a character animation. And I used my blueprinting skills to connect all the classes together. While we all ran into our own variations of problems along this way, GitHub was the rootest of them all.